The sky over Erendor bled red, as if the heavens themselves had been wounded. Princess Elara stood on the edge of the high castle balcony, the cold wind brushing her face like a warning. She watched the crimson light creep across the jagged mountains and forests below. The people whispered that the bleeding sky was a sign of despair, a signal that the world's curse was deepening. Elara had heard the warnings all her life. Still, she could not turn away. She pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders and descended the stone steps toward the ruined gardens. The castle had been empty for many years, its walls echoing only with memories of laughter and sorrow. Yet here, amid the broken fountains and overgrown paths, Elara felt closest to her ancestors, the rulers who had once tamed the wild lands of Erendor. They had left behind scrolls, tomes, and relics hidden in secret chambers, all promising answers. She needed answers. The stars themselves seemed to cry for mercy above her, and she could not ignore them. Elara reached the center of the garden, where a shattered fountain whispered the sound of flowing water. Kneeling, she traced her fingers over the worn stone. A strange warmth radiated from it, almost as if it recognized her touch. She whispered the ancient words she had memorized from a forbidden scroll, hoping to awaken the secrets buried in Erendor's history. The air shimmered and a faint light glimmered under the fountain's cracked surface. Her heart quickened. The world was listening. "Princess?" A low, guarded voice broke her concentration. She turned sharply, hand instinctively going to the hilt of her dagger. A figure emerged from the shadows of the ruined archway, a man cloaked in black, his eyes dark as storm clouds. Kale, the exiled knight who once served her mother, had returned. No one knew why he came back, and he never stayed long. Yet here he was, standing silently, his presence commanding the garden despite its decay. "What do you want, Kale?" Elara asked, her voice firm but curious. The wind tugged at her hair, and the bleeding sky framed him like a dark halo. "I should ask you the same," he said. His gaze was sharp, but there was a hint of worry hidden beneath his usual stoic expression. "It is dangerous to tamper with the old magic, Princess. Even you cannot control it. And what will you do if it answers you? Some things were never meant to be disturbed. And the dark of Erendor is patient." The bleeding sky seemed to stretch farther with every step, a mirror of the world's suffering and of her own fear. "I never asked why you were exiled," she said finally, breaking the silence. "You were my mother's champion once. Why did she cast you out?" "Some choices are made for survival, not for honor. I have learned to live with both." He looked at her then, a shadow of something softer hidden in the depths of his dark eyes. "And you, Princess? Will you let fear guide you, or will you rise above it?" "Even if it costs me everything." Kale watched quietly, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Suddenly the ground trembled, small at first, then violently. Dust fell from the crumbling walls, and a low hum filled the air. Elara's heart raced. The symbols glowed brighter, illuminating the temple in an unearthly light. "Princess?" Kale's voice was tight with concern. "Step back. You do not know what you are summoning." The air shimmered, and for a brief moment she saw visions, forests burning, rivers turning to glass, mountains cracking under some great force. Then came shapes she could not name, creatures not of her world, with eyes that glowed like molten metal, moving silently across the horizon. Kale gripped her shoulder, steadying her. "Whatever this is, it is not of Erendor." Her pulse raced. "Then it has heard our cry," she whispered. A sudden roar tore across the sky. From the clouds descended strange, metallic ships, their shapes unlike anything Elara had ever seen. They hovered silently, casting enormous shadows over the broken gardens. Their lights were cold, white, and precise, scanning the ruins below. Kale drew his sword instinctively. "Invaders," he muttered, his eyes narrowing. "We are not alone anymore." Yet their presence carried a sense of discipline, almost honor, beneath the alien precision. Elara stepped forward, heart pounding, her hands trembling. "Kale, who are they?" Elara felt a pull in her chest, a strange recognition, as if the being somehow knew her. The bleeding sky deepened, streaks of crimson and violet swirling like a warning. She met Kale's gaze, her fear tempered by resolve. "Then we must show them Erendor will not fall without a fight. And perhaps they may teach us something about survival, Princess, or destroy us trying." And as the first of the alien figures reached toward the temple, the ground trembled again, more violently this time. Elara knew one thing with certainty: Erendor's fate had changed forever, and her journey had only just begun. She glanced at Kale. "We will face this together." Princess Elara stood beside Kale, her heart still racing from the first glimpse of these beings. The creatures moved with an eerie precision, their white armor reflecting the crimson sky. Though they had not spoken a word she could understand, Elara sensed intelligence and purpose behind their silent motions. Kale's sword remained drawn, his stance rigid and alert. "Keep close," he said quietly. "They are not human, we do not know their intentions." From the lead ship descended a figure taller than any man Elara had ever seen. Its armor was smooth, almost glowing, and its eyes were like molten silver. It raised a hand, and a strange hum vibrated through the air. Elara felt a pull in her chest, as if the being's gaze penetrated her very thoughts. Kale stepped forward instinctively, placing himself between the princess and the figure. "Stay back," he warned. The figure tilted its head, observing them silently. Then it spoke in a language that Elara could not comprehend. Its voice was deep and calm, resonating with authority, yet there was something strange in the cadence, something that hinted at curiosity rather than aggression. Elara swallowed hard. She wanted to speak, to tell this strange visitor that she meant no harm, but the words would not come. Kale's hand rested on her shoulder, a quiet reminder that she was not alone. Suddenly, the humming sound changed, growing louder and more urgent. Elara felt a wave of energy pass through the ground beneath her feet. The symbols on the temple began to glow again, faintly this time, as if responding to the alien presence. "They are connected to the stars," Elara whispered, almost to herself. "The curse, it reacts to them." "Can we trust them?" The figure's gesture was not aggressive. It was careful, precise, almost as if it wanted to understand, not destroy. Kale's jaw tightened. "I do not trust them," he said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. Elara stepped forward, lifting her hands. "We do not know their purpose," she said softly, "but perhaps they are not here to fight. Perhaps they have come to help. Their presence, it is different, not just power but understanding." The energy beneath her hands responded immediately, flaring brighter than before. She felt a sudden rush of insight, visions of stars, of distant worlds, and of a power that could change Urindor forever. Kale noticed the look in her eyes and stepped closer. "Princess, what do you see?" "It is tied to them," she gestured toward the alien figures. "They are part of the answer whether we like it or not." The ground trembled slightly where it touched, and faint lines of light spread outward. Elara gasped. The being was communicating, but not with words, with energy, with magic. She felt a strange resonance in her chest, as if the pulse of the alien power aligned with the ancient energy of Urindor itself. For the first time, she realized that the stars' cry had not been in vain. Something had come to listen, something had come to act. Kale looked at her sharply. "If that is true, then we must be careful. Their help may come at a cost we cannot yet see." Perhaps this was the chance to save her world, to end the bleeding sky, and to bring peace to Urindor. "Princess," Kale said, his voice quiet but firm, "whatever happens, you are not alone. We face this together." And yet never had she felt so alive. The taller figure stepped forward, and for the first time Elara noticed a symbol etched into its armor, a design that matched the glowing lines of the temple. A connection, she realized, between the aliens and the ancient magic of her world. The stars' call, the curse, and these visitors were all intertwined in ways she could barely comprehend. Kale's grip on his sword tightened again. "We must learn from them," he said cautiously, "but we cannot surrender our people to them, not yet." Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air again, deeper and more powerful than before. The temple trembled and the ground shook beneath their feet. The smaller visitors raised their hands, forming patterns in the air. Light traced the symbols of the temple, connecting the alien energy with Urindor's ancient magic. Elara felt the pulse through her body, a mixture of fear and exhilaration. She understood then that this moment could change everything. The curse could be broken, or the world could be destroyed. There was no middle path. Kale looked at her, concern etched across his face. "Princess, be ready. Whatever happens, it will not be easy." "I have no choice." And then, without warning, a voice spoke, not in words but in thought, resonating directly within her mind. Calm, commanding, yet strangely gentle. "Princess of Urindor, you have called, we have come. Will you rise to meet your fate?" The weight of the universe pressed down upon them, and she realized something profound. The stars had not simply cried for mercy, they had sent an answer. Her heart pounded with both fear and hope. She glanced at the alien figure whose armor bore the symbol of the temple, and then back at Kale. "Whatever this is," she said, voice steady despite her racing pulse, "we must face it. Together." The ground trembled once more, and Elara knew. This was only the beginning. The ruins of Erendor's capital lay before them like a wounded beast, its towers broken and streets overgrown with weeds. Princess Elara rode at the front of the small group, Kale beside her, both alert to the silent presence of the Deathworlders who followed at a careful distance. The sky above burned crimson, streaked with silver light from the alien ships hovering far overhead. Elara's heart ached at the sight of her city, once proud and alive, now fractured and quiet. The air smelled of dust, smoke, and something faintly metallic, the lingering echo of alien presence. She tightened her cloak around her shoulders and rode toward the castle keep, where the remaining nobles had gathered in fearful whispers. Kale's hand brushed hers briefly as they rode together, a small gesture that reminded her she was not alone. He had grown quieter since their encounter with the Deathworlders, his usual sharp words tempered by caution and perhaps, she thought, by worry for her. "Princess," Kale said softly, "we must be careful. Not everyone here will welcome these visitors. Some will see them as enemies to be fought, others as a threat to their power. The stars sent them, and if we are to save Erendor, we must understand them." She could feel their fear, their uncertainty, and the weight of their expectation. "Your Highness," one of the older lords began, voice trembling. "These visitors from the stars, they are not of our world. How can we trust them? How can we trust anyone now? The stars have called them here. That alone is a sign that we cannot ignore." For the first time, Elara noticed the symbol etched into its armor, a design that mirrored the glowing lines of the ancient temple in the ruined gardens. "This one," Elara whispered to Kale, "is connected to our magic. I can feel it. Don't let hope blind you. You are the key." "If they speak truth," he muttered, "then we are dealing with forces beyond anything Erendor has faced before." Light streamed from its armor, tracing patterns in the air that matched the ancient symbols of the castle walls. Elara felt the hum of energy resonate through her, a connection forming between her magic and the alien power. Kale watched closely. "Do you feel that?" he asked, his voice quiet. "Their energy, it merges with ours. But it is not like anything I have ever known. Perhaps they could succeed in breaking the curse after all. But even as progress was made, the city whispered warnings. Some nobles had begun plotting behind closed doors, fearing that Elara's reliance on the Deathworlders would diminish their influence. Others spoke of rebellion, of turning against her. Kale's sharp eyes caught a group of men huddled near a tower. "They are planning something," he said quietly. "We must watch them carefully. The world is changing, and we must change with it." "You should rest," he said, voice soft. "You will need strength for what is to come. Even the stars themselves cannot bear such a burden alone." Yet there was another presence in her heart, an awareness of the alien leader who had touched her mind with words and understanding. A strange connection, impossible to ignore, stirred a sense of both hope and uncertainty. The next morning, the city awoke to an unusual sight. From the sky above, a shimmering aurora appeared, spreading across the crimson clouds. The Deathworlders moved with purpose, their light tracing the patterns of Erendor's magic across the city. The citizens watched from below, fear and awe in equal measure. Elara and Kale stood on a balcony overlooking the scene. "Do you see that?" she whispered. "It is as if the stars themselves are guiding them." "We cannot be certain." The aliens responded instantly, moving in precise formations, their light cutting through the chaos. Kale drew his sword. "Something approaches, be ready." And then she saw it, a monstrous shadow moving through the streets, larger than any beast she had ever known. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent light, and its roar shook the air itself. The citizens scattered, and the Deathworlders moved swiftly, surrounding the creature with shields of light. Kale grabbed Elara's hand. "Stay close. This is only the beginning." As the battle raged, she glanced at Kale, then at the alien leader. The connections between them were forming a fragile bond, one that might be their greatest strength or their deepest risk. Above, the crimson sky began to crack, silver and gold light spilling through. The bleeding sky was healing, but the threat was far from over. And somewhere in the distance, Elara sensed a greater power watching, waiting for the moment when the Princess of Erendor would have to choose her path. The fractured throne awaited her, and she knew that the world she had known would never be the same again. The sky over Erendor had changed. Crimson still lingered at the edges, but silver and gold streaks now danced across the clouds, casting a surreal glow over the fractured city. The Deathworlders' ships hovered above like silent guardians, their light tracing the ancient symbols carved into the stone streets and towers. Yet despite the beauty, a deep tension thrummed in the air, warning that the greatest challenge was yet to come. Princess Elara stood at the center of the castle courtyard, her cloak whipping in the wind. Kale was beside her, sword drawn, eyes scanning the horizon. The alien leader, tall and silver-eyed, observed quietly, its presence calm yet powerful. They had trained, learned, and prepared together, but the true test had arrived. The monstrous shadow that had attacked the city before now returned, larger and more fearsome, a creature born from the curse that had haunted Urindor for centuries. Its roar echoed like thunder, shaking the very foundations of the castle. This time, however, it was not alone. Smaller shadows, twisted forms born of fear and despair, followed it, spreading across the streets and alleyways. Elara took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of her own magic mingle with the alien energy. She had learned to channel both, though the combination was unpredictable, even dangerous. Yet she knew there was no other way. The fate of her people, and perhaps the stars themselves, depended on her courage. Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever happens, we face this together," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. Elara nodded, her resolve hardening. "Together. Trust in your power and in those who stand with you." The shadow creatures advanced, their eyes glowing with malice. Kale charged forward, his sword cutting through the smaller forms, while the Deathworlders moved with precision, their energy shields and weapons holding back the monsters' advance. Elara focused on the largest shadow, feeling its dark energy pressing against her mind. "You feed on despair," she whispered, feeling the creature's influence. "I will not let you take this world." Elara's energy pulsed in response, a battle not only of strength but of will. Kale fought alongside her, deflecting attacks and guiding citizens to safety. His movements were precise and fearless, his trust in Elara evident in every action. For the first time, she realized that true strength came not from magic alone, but from unity and trust. The alien leader moved closer, its presence amplifying her power. Through their connection, Elara could see flashes of understanding, symbols of the stars, cosmic patterns that revealed the creature's weakness. The curse was powerful, yes, but it relied on despair and fear. If those could be overcome, the shadow could be broken. Elara closed her eyes, focusing not on the creature's darkness, but on the hope that still lived in her city, in her people, in Kale, and even in the alien presence that had come to aid them. She felt her energy align, the flow of magic and alien power forming a wave of light that stretched from her heart to the edge of the courtyard. With a cry that echoed over the city, she unleashed it. The light struck the shadow directly, and for a moment everything seemed to pause. The creature screamed, a sound that vibrated through the ground and sky, then shattered into fragments of darkness that dissolved into nothingness. The smaller shadows followed, their forms collapsing as Elara's light washed over them. The curse that had haunted Urindor for centuries faltered and began to fade, its power broken by courage, hope, and the unity of those who had stood against it. Kale lowered his sword, breathing heavily, a look of awe and relief on his face. "You did it," he said, voice filled with wonder. "You saved us all." "We did it," she corrected gently, glancing at Kale and then at the alien leader. "We all did it." Smoke still rose from some buildings, and the crimson stains of the bleeding sky had not fully disappeared. But the worst was over. For the first time in her life, she felt the weight of despair lift, replaced by a fragile but undeniable hope. Kale stepped beside her, his hand brushing hers. The connection between them had deepened through the trials they had faced together. "Urindor is alive because of you," he said softly, "and because of all of us who stood with you." The alien leader spoke one last time, its voice calm and final. "We return to the stars. Your world is safe, but the universe is vast. Remember what you have learned, Princess." As the Deathworlders ascended, Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. "What now?" he asked. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the streaks of silver and gold in the sky. "Now we rebuild, we heal Urindor, we honor the courage that saved it. And we remember that the stars are always watching, guiding us when we dare to act." The people whispered of the princess who had called to the stars and of the strangers who had come from beyond to aid them. Elara worked alongside her people, rebuilding the city, healing old wounds, and forging new alliances. Kale remained by her side, his loyalty unwavering, his presence a source of strength and comfort. Yet even in peace, there was a sense of vigilance. The stars had intervened once, but Elara knew that the universe was vast and unpredictable. New challenges would come, new trials would test them, and the echoes of the past curse would linger in memory. But now, she was ready. And as she stood atop the castle balcony one evening, looking at the sky streaked with the last hints of crimson and silver, Elara felt a quiet connection to the stars. She had faced despair, fear, and darkness, and she had emerged stronger. The universe had watched, and she had answered its call. Kale stepped beside her, his hand brushing hers again. "Do you think they will return?" he asked quietly. Elara smiled faintly, her eyes reflecting the dying light of the sky. "Perhaps, but if they do, we will be ready." Together, Elara knew that Erendor's tale was only one part of a greater story, and she would face whatever came next with courage, wisdom, and the strength she had found in both human and alien allies. The stars shone down, silent and eternal, and Erendor, though scarred and weary, rose once more under their watchful light. The bleeding sky was gone, replaced by twilight and hope. And for the first time, Princess Elara understood the true meaning of mercy, courage, and the power of unity in the face of darkness.